It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Raphael Kelvin and Professor Mick to present on MindEd, which is a very exciting new portal which is going to provide advice, learning resources to everybody who comes in contact with young people. So swimming teacher to a GP, a brownie leader to a learning support, even a vicar to a policeman. And really and truly how it's going to improve the experience of the outcomes of the children and young people. Many of you know Raph as the former National Professional Advisor for Children and Young People's Mental Health and Wellbeing at the Department of Health, and one of the original, I think, Raph CYPI team, and Mick is our National Clinical Lead for Counselling as well. So the ambition is absolutely breathtaking. I was totally enthralled with it myself, so over to you.
So thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you all here. I feel very proud to have been part of the development of the SIPI Act in the first place, and I'm really delighted to come today to tell you about the developments that we've got with this programme. So I shall start really with the voice of young people. I have a little clip that I'd like to play to you. This clip is going to be part of one of the sessions that we're going to have on the portal, and then I'll tell you a bit about the portal itself. So I hope the technology works okay here.
Do take every case seriously. Even now, I sometimes think about how different my life may have been if they had taken me seriously when I first approached them.
Okay, so what I'd like to tell you about is how we answer this call from young people to take them seriously. I think that if there's one thing that I've heard repeatedly, it's young people saying, take me seriously, listen to the problems that I've got, and do something about it. You know, as a country, as professionals, as politicians, we had the Care Services Minister here today speaking very passionately about this. How do we take young people seriously? And there's multiple different ways that we can think about that. We can look at levels at which we take people seriously. The MindEd portal is one part of this jigsaw that we're putting together to really listen to the voice of young people. And this first slide that I've got for you is going to be very familiar to those of you who've looked at the national statistics and the sort of figures that we have in relation to children and young people and this country. Taking a sort of dividing the community up, if you like, according to a kind of universal level, a general targeted level, and a specialist level of analysis. But we can say that there are 12 million children and young people in this country, and we can say that there are approximately 1 million adults who have some kind of working relationship with children and young people. A very large component of that group are going to be teachers, but there's also youth workers, and there's coaches, and there's professionals in the health service, and there are people working in churches and all sorts of voluntary organisations who have a responsibility or have a working relationship with children and young people. And the MindEd portal is aimed at that 1 million people, and that includes yourselves who are going to be working at these two levels, more particularly probably the specialist level. But it also includes the rest of the population. And so the MindEd portal is squarely aimed at the whole country. That's the little ambition that we have. What we're aiming to do is increase the amount of knowledge and the amount of understanding that adults have when they're relating to children and young people, when they're working with children and young people. There's often a striking lack of knowledge or understanding or fear of engaging with young people, let alone if they have mental health issues or mental health problems. And we hear that from, even quite skilled professionals who say, well, I talked to the parents, but I wasn't quite sure I should talk to the young person. GPs, for example, often do a great job, but they often don't talk to the young person. We need to empower and increase the knowledge and sense of responsibility that people have for children and young people. If we're really going to change what's going on, the level of issues and problems that we have across the community for children and young people, we've got to change that sense of empowerment and that sense of knowledge. If we're going to change the mindsets of commissioners and the mindsets of decision makers, the people who allocate resources, if we're going to redress the imbalance that Peter spoke about this morning, between the investment in children's services and the investments in other services, mindsets will have to be changed. And what we do, and I'm a specialist CAMS practitioner like the rest of you, or many of you in this audience, what we do in those services is important, but is not enough. We really need to look across the whole community. And so this is a progressive, universal approach, going from universal into specialist thinking and services. So by doing this, and we hope the portal isn't the answer to all of this, and I wouldn't pretend that for a moment, but it's certainly, we hope it will be a very important component, will increase the understanding and therefore the appropriate referral and the appropriate help at the right time, in the right place for young people coming across adults when the young person has a mental health difficulty or mental health problem. And we know that there are many, many young people, maybe 1.2 million, probably even more. If we do another ONS survey, we'll discover the facts on that. We know that about 450,000 have the more severe kind of problems that should be reaching more specialist services, and we know that at best, probably 20 or 25% of those who need services are getting anything at all. To me, that's always been a scandal, and I think the notion that we have a parity of esteem with physical health care, where you would not tolerate 25% of people with diabetes or asthma getting care and the other 75% getting nothing, is a crucial element of our underpinning philosophy and thinking. MindEd has got a significant investment from the Department of Health through a grant to a consortium. The consortium at MindEd, which I represent, is built up of many of the important stakeholders working with children and young people, includes the Royal College of GPs, includes the Royal College of Paediatrics, and includes nursing, and includes the Psychological Society, British Psychological Society, and the BACP, Young Minds, and NCB, and so forth. We're working together for children and young people. We've been granted £3 million and an additional 700,000 recently for stage 2, which I'll tell you about in a moment. You might say that's a lot of money. Those of you who are managers and commissioners here will know it's a sizable chunk of money, but it's only one chunk. It's not recurrent funding, and it would buy you a bit of service in a bit of a patch of the country for a period of time. What we're going to be able to deliver with this is something that's potentially reaching 1 million people for essentially less than 50p per person over a 3-year period for the life of the learning. So there's a value element in terms of what we can deliver. We're also going to be potentially preventing the repetition of this sort of learning product being rolled out in all sorts of organisations and trusts around the country. We're getting the best and the highest quality material and teachers and writing that we can get into this. And hopefully NHS trusts and voluntary organisations will look and say, this is the place we'll go for this sort of material when we're doing this kind of training and development with people in the community that we're working with, and won't need to write it all again. So that should save money. By increasing knowledge and understanding, we erode stigma. Stigma operates for everybody. And those of you in here who thinks that it's all about the community out there and we're the enlightened ones, look again at yourselves and your own practice. Look again at how much hope and expectation you have for your cases who have longer-term conditions and chronic difficulties. Part of what we're doing in SIP Act is raising that kind of awareness and looking at the management pathway and eroding that lack of understanding about what can be achieved and how you can make differences. This is just to give you a flavour of the portal. By all means, go to our website, which is currently a web page, a series of web pages. It's not actually what the thing's going to look like when it's published in March next year, but this is just to give you a little quick insight into it. We are covering a lot of material. We're developing around 200 e-learning sessions. Each session's 20, 30 minutes, that sort of time period of learning, which you'll be able to access from any place, anywhere, anytime within this country. You don't have to have an NHS address. You can come from a local authority, your personal, Google, wherever you're coming from. It's free and open access. And the curriculums that we have and we've worked on together with my colleagues include the curriculum that looks right across development. So we're going to understand more about normal development, about social, cognitive and family development processes, about how that leads into pathways of difficulty, about what you can do to make a change and how you can help, issues around diversity and equalities, issues around the legal frameworks that surround children and young people's care, how we engage and listen and participation. We're going to hear a lot more from our colleagues about participation shortly after my talk and Mick's. how we talk with families and how we really listen in ways that make a difference to children and young people. We've got a link across to what's called the HCP, which our colleagues in paediatrics have worked on for some time. That's the Healthy Child Programme, which is a physical healthcare approach but includes some mental health components, terribly important. Personally, I'm a great advocate of mind and body being together, and this dualistic approach that we developed in our services of mental health services over there and physical health services over here, is problematic to say the least. And then, of course, crucially for this audience, in addition, we have the development of the curricula. These are not replacing HEI training. These are supporting HEI training for the SIP-IAP trainees. And we have 3 of those curricula being put onto the e-portal at this stage, including the curricula developed by Mick Cooper, who's going to speak about the counselling side of the portal in a moment. We have an additional £700,000 recently granted from the Department of Health to extend the targeted specialist level knowledge and information. We're currently scoping that, but it's also going to include additional curricula from the SIP-IAP stable, and the knowledge that we're going to be adding to the portal will be in relation to more complex presentations and pathways, so that we integrate the knowledge of the full roundness of CAM specialist and community care into supporting the whole SIP-IAP development. There's a sister product, which is the Neuro, which is actually a disability portal. It's going to cover more than Neuro, so that's a typo there. That's coming on stream in the next period of time too, following a similar kind of consortium-based approach. This slide just gives you the pillars of the portal. I've spoken about 4 of those pillars already. I just want to highlight there's a 5th pillar over here, which is terribly important. We're doing a systematic review of the evidence on e-therapies internationally. That group is chaired by Peter Fonagy and Tim Kendall over at the National Collaborating Centre, so it's a nice standard systematic review, and we're going to be publishing that. I'm part of that group on the portal in the future to guide you guys onto where you're going to go for what e-therapies, for what cost and with what kind of value. This is a little preview of the actual portal front page, which is going to look an awful lot like this with small modifications. Just to give you a little feel of it, and the key message that I want to get across to you today is that you can sign up for the portal, and when you sign up, you'll be asked what kind of professional grouping you belong to in a broad sense, and then you will get a kind of bespoke learning pathway, which will say go to session 1, 5, 10, and 15 if you're a policeman, because the Association of Chief Police Officers said that's the kind of best pathway for liaison policemen. And if you're a social worker, it will be X, Y, Z, and so forth. So you can sign up. But if you don't want to sign up, if you just want to kind of go around and have a whiz around the pistes, as it were, you can just explore straight away without signing up. So we're having minimal impediment into engagement into the portal and the web pages. And if you want to explore, you'll be taken to a page that would look something like this. And here we've got signs of problems where we've given examples of the sort of issues that people might be concerned about out there in the community. The young person who's tearful and seems to be withdrawing, or the young person who's lashing out and having behaviour problems and so forth. And each of these 4 tabs will take you to the kind of different areas of behaviour, feeling, thoughts and development that we are familiar with that will help people understand those problems and link them into appropriate care pathways and understanding about that. Lastly, a quick Gantt chart, and then I'm going to hand over to Professor Cooper. The purpose of this is to remind me to tell you that we are doing an evaluation of the portal, and that's being led by the NCB, the National Children's Bureau. Kathy Street is taking a lead on that for us, which is wonderful. And also to tell you that we do have planning in relation to sustainability. There's some way to go on that, but we are in the early stages of ensuring that this programme will be sustainable into the longer term. And certainly over the next 2 years, we have a firm plan in place, but we're beginning to develop links and ideas that might help us take that further. Health Education England are a key partner and are partnering up with us on that goal. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Professor Mick Cooper to tell you about the counselling side of the portal.
So just a very couple of quick minutes on counselling MindEd. and this is our Counselling Minded programme. Counselling Minded is really an opportunity to develop these evidence-based e-learning training packages for counsellors, but also in that way to extend some of the principles of Children and Young People's IAPT to the counselling community around participation, around evidence-based practice. And because we're working with RAF and colleagues to develop a shared set of modules and a shared set of understanding, it really helps to promote the integration agenda that the Minister was talking about this morning, because by having shared understandings of issues like consent, shared understandings of issues like participation, it means that many of us can be working together to the same kinds of sets of standards, the same kind of referral procedures and criteria to make sure that there's integrated pathways of care for the children and young people that we work with. So our Counselling Minded programme consists of 14 modules, and each of the modules, like many of the other programmes, is going to be about 1 to 6 sessions of approximately 30 minutes each. And these are some of the key modules that we're going to be looking at. Many of the sessions in these modules will be shared with other elements of the Minded programme. So we'll be looking at counselling in the many different contexts that it happens, like schools, and very important in the voluntary and community sector. We'll be looking at legal and professional issues, along with our colleagues who will be doing the CYP-IAPT training. We'll be looking at participation and using a number of the CYP-IAPT participation sessions to extend those ideas out into the many counsellors who are working with children and young people. And then we'll be having practice sessions around initiating counselling, very importantly, having an extended series of sessions on routine outcome monitoring that will be there for the whole e-learning package, relational skills, therapeutic skills, looking at developmental themes for young people and young adults, and also, very importantly, training sessions for the supervisors, so that supervisors working with counsellors, as well as in the wider CYP-IAPT programme, can develop skills, particularly around using routine outcome monitoring. As part of this programme, we also did a number of research projects to really find out more what was happening in the counselling world and how it linked in with a wider field of children and young people's mental health. So we looked at areas like counselling in secondary schools and the people who were seen there. We looked at counselling in the voluntary and community sector. We looked at online counselling, which is an important growing area. We looked at training courses for counselling with children and young people. We looked at the relationship between specialist CAMS and counselling and how people work together. And we looked at, even looked internationally to see some of the international context for counselling, as well as looking at what e-learning materials available. And these are all available on our Counselling Minded website and really inform the basis for the work that we're doing. So that CYP-IAPT has both helped us to develop a broader and a much richer understanding of what happens in the counselling fields to be able to develop evidence-based, participatory, integrated practice. So just in terms of progress, we've now had our sessions have all been sketched out, what they'll be like. We have a number of content plans which have gone to the designers so that they're now being worked on. And I'm very pleased to say we actually had our first session hot off the press just this morning, actually, so that we're beginning to see these programs come through ready for the completion date in March 2014. So as Jackie and Raph have been saying, it's a very exciting program that we're working on that is, as well as delivering a large body of e-learning content, is also supporting a number of our initiatives around integrated and joint working to really provide for the care and the mental health needs of our children and young people. Thank you.
Thank you. So the ambition and scope behind MindEd is really quite breathtaking, and I can't wait to sort of actually have a go at myself as somebody who's worked with children for about the last 35 years.
Hi, I was just wondering if there's any provision for parents to access this resource.
You can access it if you're a parent, but there will be a disclaimer at the front. We're not commissioned to design this as being primarily for parents. But when I presented this to groups with parents of young people, they said they would find this likely invaluable. There'd be nothing to stop parents doing that. Just the disclaimer that it's not actually direct parent advice. That would be an additional commission, if you like, and beyond our current scope.